League of Legends is, or at least used to be, the biggest game in the world, managing to reach well over 67 million players. League has been around ever since the 27th of October 2009, where it essentially redefined the MOBA genre, and was what started the sudden boom of all these MOBA games. You know what I mean, I'm talking about Smite, Infinite Crisis, Strife, Heroes of the Storm, Guardians of Middle-earth, which was truly revolutionary for the genre, but not as revolutionary as Adventure Time Battle Party. I mean, truly this was a sleeper hit. I can remember my early days of playing League. My friend initially got me into it as he taught me the game. He was like Diamond 78, so in many ways he was my sensei and guide on the way in this cruel and toxic world. I have so many memories of working my way up and grinding levels up until that glorious level 30 where I could finally come and join the big boys up in ranked. Or how about my first pentakill? I mean, really, you could have sex, or you could get a pentakill in League. Now try and tell me which one feels better. I think the answer is obvious. At the time, League just seemed so much more appealing to me. Not being oversaturated with the MOBA genre as I am now, it all seemed so fresh to me. There was something appealing about it. Maybe it had something to do with League's cast of iconic and lovable and pure badass characters. I'm talking Renekton, Nasus, Ezreal, Teemo, Nocturne, Bigfoot, Nautilus, Horseshoe, Green Goblin, Shrek.
Wow! 我是怪兽!
But League these days is just a shadow of his former self. There's no doubt this shit is still huge, managing to pull in as many players, tournament earnings, and stuff like that. But back in the old days, almost everyone I knew was playing League of Legends, at least occasionally. Nowadays, you'd be lucky to find 3 guys who even know what a League of Legends is. It's been around for pretty much like 10 years now, so you can't exactly blame the fuckers at Riot Games for the game dying. But they're not totally innocent here. These bastards have completely fucked the game in my opinion. Some of it isn't directly their fault, but these bozos don't know how to run a game too well either. Now tell me, how many times have you recalled League of Legends announcing a new character? You may be excited for their design, or perhaps their lore is pretty good. For instance, they added lore that Pantheon was actually a world famous baker who was hired by Domino's himself to make the ultimate pizza base, which I mean is just a groundbreaking story overall. But regardless of this, I'd be willing to bet you my PC, Game Boy, and all of my action replay discs that any character released would be OP and unbalanced as shit. Besides maybe Bard, I seriously cannot think of a single new character that hasn't been batshit broken on release. Yasuo came out and dominated every game with his stupidly OP passive and his skill set, to this day still being fairly strong. Fizz for a solid few years was so broken that he could basically two-shot any ADC. Of course, he's fairly toned down now, but this shit used to be crazy. And the most recent case of this, Pyke. So it's fairly clear to me that Riot Games do not understand what balancing is. They failed to grasp the entire concept of it. But I think what's more of a hindrance is that the game honestly lacks any updates with some sort of substance. Think about it. It's the same problem Overwatch has, where the only proper things added to the game are new characters, which keep it somewhat fresh for maybe a week at the most, but after that, the game is quite literally the same. Compared to games that are constantly added in new shit that change the gameplay completely, this stuff is weak as hell. You could argue that the season changes are big enough, but as is with the characters, they really only keep it fresh for a week or two. The game itself plays out mostly the same every time, so it doesn't offer much in the long run. And so eventually, you're just gonna get sick of this shit and bored out of your mind. There's only so many times you can shoot a big ass bitch before you sit down and think to yourself, what the fuck am I doing? As with most competitive games, League is just far too competitive at times. I mean, I guess you shouldn't really expect much else, seeing as League is the most popular esport. But it's just not fun when every player you come into contact with, and honestly sometimes yourself, take this shit way too seriously. It's probably down to the toxic community, but I'll be getting into that piece of shit later on. It's just not fun when you have to sweat and follow the exact metas at the time if you want a slight chance of winning. You know, you always gotta have a geezer top lane, a homie in the middle, a wild cunt in the jungle, and then an internet e-dating couple in the bottom lane. And you always gotta have the best characters at the time. You think you could pick someone you actually like? Well, get ready for everyone to cry because these bastards can't handle losing in an online video game. But this is all just a byproduct of how boring, mundane, and easily frustrating the core of the game actually is. It's not fun to spend the first 20-ish minutes of the game farming random minions. It's not fun grouping up 50 times to have a team fight where it's a coin toss on who actually wins. The core of the game just isn't very fun. You could be playing so many more exciting and fun games compared to this. On top of that, because of this, it just makes you 10 times more pissed off if you die or fuck something up, because you're already bored out of your mind. Perhaps this is just because I've become so oversaturated to the game and the market. When I first played the game, it was almost addicting, but like most addictions, that shit will fucking kill you. Now, there are a lot of communities out of games, and they go on a scale of about wholesome to fuck zone. Now, over in the wholesome, you got games like Animal Crossing and Monster Hunter. Somewhere in the middle, you probably got like Smash Brothers. Overwatch are probably near the fuck zone. But League? League's over here in the piece of shit zone. I don't think I've ever seen a community so vicious, so vile and evil as League's. The first rule of League is that everyone is an asshole. They seem to just nitpick and get pissed at you for any single mistake. You miss one CS? You accidentally flash.
Piece of shit,
You fucking idiot. You accidentally win the game? You buy the wrong boots.
How can you fucking do that?
Oh my fucking god, get off my... Everyone is just so vicious and mean that it honestly drives people away from this fucking community and game, if you could even call it a community. I could forgive League's mediocre gameplay and lack of true updates if this fanbase wasn't just fucking awful. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, not even Riot could save this game if they wanted to, because the fans are killing it themselves. League at the end of the day is well past its prime. It was fine back in the olden days, but after being in commission for so long, you have to stop being realistic. You know, you gotta set up a retirement plan, pick a nice place on Summoner's Rift to settle down. Riot could maybe fix these problems, but after being in this state for so long, I fear that that opportunity is too far gone. But to wrap this video up, I'd say that in conclusion, to wrap up this thesis, to put the issue to bed, to sum it up, to simplify it, to finish it off, League of Legends fucking sucks.